Hello, my dear students. Namaste and welcome to session 2 of our class in ICSE chapter Genetics. This is Ambika, your biology master teacher, right here at Vedantu. Okay, guys, so let's get started. I think in session 1, we've covered pretty much a lot of basics that I told you are very important for you to understand what comes up in session 2 and session 3, right? So today also, we will be talking about a few more basics. Okay, so remember I told you Mendelian genetics, Mendel, and all of that. Many of you might be curious to know what Mendel's story is and how all the discovery of genes and heredity, the science of heredity came into existence, and all of that, all of which we are going to be discussing today. Okay, so stay with me. But before that, as always, this is my inspirational quote for you. Believe you can, and you are halfway there. Okay, so self belief, along with hard work, as we always say, together would lead you to success. Believe you can. If you can dream something, you can certainly do it. Okay, so let's move ahead with full Josh, full positivity, and there we go, discussing the homework question of yesterday. Genes are to characters as alleles are to dash. Okay, so the answer would be, what do you think? I think I gave you a hint in the last session. I told you the relationship between genes and alleles. Remember, I told you in a pair of homologous chromosomes, you would find alleles occupying the same position, which we actually call locus. Okay, so if these are the alleles for a gene, we call the capital A and small a to be together forming a pair of alleles which forms one gene. Versions of genes are what we call alleles. Okay, now what about character? I told you that eye color is a character, whereas blue eye color or green eye color or brown eye color would all be traits of the character. So yes, genes are to characters as alleles are to traits. Why is it so? Because I would say the allele for blue eye color and not the gene for blue eye color. I would say the gene for eye color, because gene is for character, more of a general term. These are two very general terms. The gene for eye color, the gene for height, the gene for skin complexion or skin color, the gene for hair texture, the gene for hair color. But when I say allele, I would say the allele for blue eye color, the allele for brown eye color, the allele for tallness, the allele for shortness, the allele for dark skin complexion, the allele for fair skin complexion, and so on. Allele is to trait as genes are to characters, or the other way around. Okay, children, so you must know the difference very, very clearly. I know there's a very, very thin line of difference, but always just remember this simple rule. Alleles are versions of genes and traits are versions of characters. All right, and with that, let's move ahead. Now, here's just to give you a few examples of traits. So we've described some dominant and recessive traits for you, just for your reference. Okay, guys. Yeah. Moving ahead, let's today learn about introduction to Mendel, or rather Mendel's story, concept of factor and gene, why did Mendel select the pea plant, character studied by Mendel. Okay, so there we go. Remember I told you in the last session, the Simpsons family, I gave you the same example, but look at them, how cute they are. And you can see that the children themselves, there are 3 children in this family, and you can see that there are a lot of similarities, yet there are a lot of differences between them as well, right? So what is leading to those similarities, or what is leading to those differences, and also between the parents and children themselves? Similarities are there, differences are also there. Okay, what is responsible for this? It was Gregor Johann Mendel, who is known as the father of genetics, the father of modern genetics. Now, to tell you more about what Mendel did, Mendel was actually he lived in the 1800s, and he was a very, very passionate gardener. Okay, and he was brought up in a convent, and he was part of a monastery. In fact, he wanted to try out to get a teaching certificate, and stories say that he failed the exams to get a teaching certificate. But then, just because he failed the exams, he did not suppress his desire or his zeal towards attaining scientific knowledge. He was still very, very passionate about science, so he decided to join his monastery back, and he continued his life as a monk. And during his life in the monastery, because of the part of his own inner self, which was very interested in science, he decided to grow his own garden in which he grew lots of different plants. And specifically, Mendel was very, very curious to understand how parents and offsprings, and even among offspring, siblings look alike, or yet they are different from each other, and so on. Among all organisms, for that matter, be it a plant, be it an animal, be it even a very complex animal like the human being, he observed that this was true. What trait you see in parents, some part of it gets inherited by the offspring, some part seems different from the parents, some part differs from that of each other. Mendel was the first to actually observe that. Okay, so he went on trying out different experiments to study that. He wanted to study it in animals, but then because he lived in a monastery, animal sex was said to be like studying animal sex was something like a don't do sort of things, like a taboo in his monastery. So he decided to drop that idea, yet he wanted to know more about how inheritance patterns happened scientifically. This is how he happened to grow a beautiful garden with pea plants. Okay, look at this. This is one of the most famous portraits of Mendel, standing there in his pea garden. Okay, garden pea plant, which is scientifically called Pisum sativum. He decided to choose that particular plant to study the patterns of inheritance. Why so? I will be telling you today. But then anyway, based on all his studies, based on everything that he observed in the pea plants, Mendel came up with the 3 laws, which we call today as the laws, the basic laws of genetics, or the basic laws of inheritance. The law of dominance, the law of segregation, and the law of independent assortment. Okay, so more about these laws I will tell you once we are done completely learning about Mendel's experiments, which will be in our next session. So hold on until then. Today, let us get started with what Mendel did. Now, Mendel actually using his logic and keen sense of observation, he observed or found that gametes have something called factors. Okay, gametes have something that's called factors, which are responsible for expression of characters in offsprings. So Mendel actually found, using his logic and keen sense of observation, in these pea plants, he discovered or came to the conclusion that gametes, which means all sexually reproducing organisms, do produce what we call gametes, right? So he found or discovered that, rather, he concluded that gametes have what we call factors, which are responsible for expression of characters in offsprings. I think I told you in session 1 that factors, which was a term that was used in olden times, is actually what we call as genes today. Okay, so this is what Mendel came up with. The theory that Mendel came up with was that gametes have factors which are responsible for expression of characters in offsprings. Today, as I told you, we know that the term factor is called gene. And where do you find these genes? They are present in chromosomes. In your chapter 1 also, we have seen this well in detail. Inside the cell, inside the nucleus, inside the chromosomes, there is DNA biochemically. Segments of DNA are what we call genes. So you say that genes are present on chromosomes, right? So moving ahead. Chromosomes, we know, are fixed in every organism. They are of 2 types. I've told you this as well: autosomes and sex chromosomes, right? Remember, this is with respect to human beings that you're seeing here. 22 pairs of autosomes and 1 pair of sex chromosomes that all our diploid cells have. Okay, and now coming to the big question. Because we are talking about Mendel and Mendel's stories, Now, coming to the big question, why did Mendel select the pea plant? Out of all the plants, I told you why he selected a plant and not an animal, right? I told you the reason for that. But why is it that he did not select any other plant but went on to choose the pea plant? Now, pea plant is botanically called Pisum sativum. Okay? This is the scientific name of the garden pea plant. So let's look at the reasons why Mendel chose the pea plant. The pea plant has bisexual flowers, which means they normally undergo self-pollination. But being a scientist should have the freedom to cross-pollinate between two different individuals of his choice, right? So he wanted an organism which could also be easily cross-pollinated at the same time, which could also carry out self-pollination. Pea plant was a very good choice, okay? And it can have many varieties which can be true bred, in the sense this is one plant which has like 7 different contrasting pairs of characters, okay? And it is very, very easy to self-pollinate them and cross-pollinate them according to the scientist's wishes, according to what he or she needs for their experiments. So it is in case a scientist wants to produce like many, many generations together of tall pea plants, for example, or another family of pea plants, wherein he wants many generations of pea plants producing only purple colored flowers. This is what we mean by a purebred or true bred. Okay, it can have many varieties which can be true bred. It's easy to bring about many generations of pea plants like this. Annual plant, it's an annual plant which produces a large number of offspring, okay, which means in every single reproduction, with every single cycle of reproduction, a pea plant produces a huge number of offspring. Why is that an advantage in genetic studies? Obviously, because in a science like genetics, wherein you have to observe different characters, bigger the sample, better would the results be. Consider, for example, in case humans were considered to be the type study in Mendel's experiments, what do you think would have been the drawbacks? One drawback I can think of is that human beings do not produce, like with every reproduction, every round of reproduction, human beings wouldn't produce like 50 or 100 children at a time, which means with every round of reproduction it becomes difficult to observe or record enough data for the purpose of genetic studies. That is one drawback. What is the second drawback? I think the fact that humans have now the person who is studying the experiment, say for instance Mendel is who is studying another human being and his family to know more about genetics. Mendel himself is a human being. Do you think within his span of lifetime, say for instance if Mendel lives up to like 80, 90 years of age, within that span of life, do you think he would be able to study many, many generations of the person of interest? Definitely not. He would, at the most, he might be able to observe a person's children, his grandchildren, maximum his great grandchildren, and maybe study like two, 3 or 4 generations at a time if it was human beings. But in the pea plants, that's not the case. They have a very short lifespan, as I have written here, which means within that short lifespan of within a few months or less than 1 year or whatever it is, they end up having a lot of generations, producing many generations. More the number of generations, the better. And more the number of offsprings in each generation, even better, right? So another advantage is that pea plants were easily available and they could be very easily handled. Okay, they were very easily available, they were cheap in terms of price also, and hence Mendel decided to grow a proper garden pea garden, a Pisum sativum garden or a pea garden, in which he spent a lot of his life. In fact, I think he spent at least 9, 10 years of his life mostly in the pea garden, observing them passionately and coming up with what we know about genetics today. And you know what another interesting thing is? While Mendel was doing all these experiments, human beings knew nothing about chromosomes. Human beings knew nothing about the term genes or alleles. It was all only his logical thinking based on many generations of pea plants that he came up with all these theories. Amazing, right? Do you think we would ever bother to do something like that in the kind of fast paced world that we are living in? I don't think we would go for such a tedious task. But for Mendel, his passion was his thirst for knowledge was what drove him to all this. Now, children, before we go ahead to a very quick quiz time and a few more interesting things coming up, let me tell you a few things which you will find very useful. As far as online education is concerned, many of you have been coming up and telling us that these are the problems which you've been facing. Ma'am, I have a lot of unanswered doubts because I don't get to meet my school teachers on a daily basis, on a daily basis, except in online classes. I don't know how to make proper notes because when I was going to school, everything was like ready made and everything was checked by our teachers, but now that's not the case. Tests and assignments maybe not systematically happening. I want to prepare for competitive exams. What are they? Like NTSE, your KVPY, your NEET JEE, which is like coming above class 10, of course, but then competitive exams and your science olympiads for that matter, all of them, preparation for that is not happening properly because no proper guidance. Choice of schedule, timings, choice of language, also a problem for many of you, which is why at Vedantu we've got all these problems solved for you. I think especially if you think about it, one simple example I can give you is the choice of language itself. If you think about our YouTube channel, about 2 3 months ago we had one single channel for ninth and 10th, in which teachers would generally teach in a combination of Hindi and English. But then we understood that many of you, especially children from the southern states of the country, as well as some children from northern India also, prefer to be taught in an English medium because your exams are happening in English, because you want to improve your English more, your communication skills, or whatever. And many of you came up with the demand that you wanted to be taught in English. But at the same time, we have a huge section of children who want to be taught in Hindi as well, which is why this channel itself came into existence a month or I think 40 plus days, right? It's been since we launched. Okay, so there we go. All the problems solved for you, along with many added bonuses like unlimited live classes, all micro and crash courses, performance reports available to you, and you get personalized attention also. You get, in all our sessions at Vedantu, children who've been our regular children, regular students will know we have master teachers who will be teaching you, and you also have class teachers who will also be there along with master teachers to monitor your progress and help check your homework, check your assignments, help solve your doubts within the class when the class is happening, and even after class we will always be in touch with you, and a lot more. Okay, so what you have to do to know more about this, just visit the link vdnt.in/ytpro. Okay, and then what you do, let me just quickly guide you through step by step. Also choose your grade. So I'm assuming for you it's going to be grade 10. If not, choose it appropriately, and then choose your board, which means choose your target. If you're going to be appearing in the 2021 ICSE board exam, choose that particular option which is here. If it's CBSE 2021, that one, and so on. Check out all the details. The features I've told you, along with a lot more added bonuses, have been mentioned here about the courses which we call Vedantu Pro. Okay. So now what do you do? Next step would of course be hitting on the button get subscription. Now comes the big question. Most children ask us, what about pricing? Is it like too expensive or can I afford it? So we've got all the information here for you so that you have no confusion and you can decide whether or not this is going to be useful for you. Okay, children? So for a 1 month of pro subscription course, the normal amount payable is 2,699. But then currently we are giving you a coupon code which is AMBPRO, application of which will reduce your amount payable to 2,294.15. Now, is this too much for 1 month? In my opinion, it's not, because in that 1 full month of subscription, you are getting unlimited access to all of these features that I have told you and a lot more also. So it's up to you how to make the best use of it. Based on your logic and based on how you can calculate it, I would suggest sit down and do the math for yourself to understand how much would this cost per session. Trust me, this is a very, very pocket-friendly kind of design that Vedantu has come up with. Do not miss this opportunity. Now, if you want a subscription for 3 months, here it is. The amount payable is normally 6,999, whereas application of the same code AMBPRO reduces it to 5,949.15. For 3 full months, you get unlimited access. And for 6 months, unlimited access or 6 months of subscription, the normal amount payable without discounts is going to be 11,499, whereas the code AMBPRO, apply it and see that you will have to pay only 9,774.15. If this is the case for 6 months of unlimited live classes and unlimited interaction with our master teachers and class teachers and all your notes, assignments, test series, everything that's included in the package, just sit down and calculate how much it would cost you for one session. Definitely make the use of it, guys. You have nothing to lose. Please do visit the link and try this out. I'm leaving it completely to you. It's your choice. So see how you can make the best use of what we have to offer you. Whatever it is, we are always here to support you. Okay, children. Now going on for a quick check. Number of chromosomes in human body cell are dash. Remember? I told you this today also once. I told you this in the previous session also. And I told you this in chapter 1 also. And the answer is 46. In a diploid cell, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes or 46 chromosomes. Now we go on to the next question. Mendel's experiments and explanations can be summarized in dash laws. 1, 2, 3 or 4. How many? Remember I mentioned this to you at the start of today's session. I told you that Mendel came up with laws, what we call like the basics of genetics, which we follow even today. I did not explain the law or the laws, but I told you there are these many laws, or there is this particular law. What is that number? And I told you the name also. Okay, and your time is up. The answer is 3. 3 laws. Okay, I told you the law of dominance, the law of segregation, and the law of independent assortment, all of which will make sense to you once we are done with session 3 and session 4. Okay, guys, so now, according to Mendel, dash is responsible for the appearance of a particular character. Remember the stories I told you about Mendel? Back in Mendel's times, certain terms were used, certain terms were not used. What did Mendel think was responsible for the appearance of a particular character? Not what we know it as today. And your time is up. The answer is factor. Actually, Mendel used the word factor to refer to both genes and alleles. Okay, so do remember that. So there we go. Well done, children. We are not done yet. I have a few more things to tell you, and then we will be done with this session. What were the 7 contrasting characters studied by Mendel? Remember, I told you in the Pea Plant, Mendel studied 7 characters. 7 pairs of traits rather. Okay, what were they? Let's look at this. The first one was flower color, the very first one that Mendel studied, because Mendel noticed that pea plants could either produce purple flowers or they could produce white flowers. Okay, through his experiments, right now do not ask me why and how, because I can't tell you without explaining his step-by-step experiments to you, but he observed through his experiments that purple was dominant to white. Okay. The second character that Mendel studied was plant height. The contrasting traits of plant height were tall and dwarf. And he noticed that tall was dominant over dwarf. Okay. And thirdly, seed shape. Pea seeds could either be round, which was dominant over the recessive trait, which is wrinkled. Okay, look at the shape and you will understand what I mean by it. The seeds of the garden pea plant. Fourth one, pod color. Yes, seed pods, right? These are the seed pods inside which you find the seeds. They could either be green in color or they could be yellow in color. And through his observations, he noticed that the green one was dominant over yellow one. Okay. Now comes seed color. Seed shape we've seen, now talking about seed color. Yellow seed colors are dominant over green seed colors. Of course, you don't see a bright yellow and bright green in this picture. That's quite all right. I think we have put in like realistic looking images for you. Okay, but yes, do not worry. While we study this more in detail, I promise to give you a lot of very, very colorful pictures, because that is what will help you understand it step by step more easily. For now, just understand yellow seed colors dominant over green seed colors. Then position of flower. He noticed that in pea plants, flowers could either be axillary in position, which was dominant to terminal flowers, terminal in position and axillary in position. Okay, so this is about flower position and about shape of pod, in which inflated pods shape, look at the difference in shape. Inflated pods were dominant over constricted seed pods. Okay, so these were the 7 pairs of contrasting traits, or the 7 characters that Mendel chose in the pea plant to carry out his monohybrid and dihybrid experiments. Let's quickly summarize them. These are the 7 different characters, and these are their dominant and recessive traits respectively. And the topic we are going to be learning next, not today, but in the upcoming session, would be starting with Mendel's monohybrid cross. Remember, I told you in monohybrid cross, it refers to those experiments wherein only one particular character is studied at a time. Mendel started with monohybrid crosses, and once he had observed a lot of examples for monohybrid crosses, he went ahead and performed what we call as dihybrid crosses, wherein 2 characters, inheritance of 2 random of these were considered at a time. But regardless of how many ever times he did, or whatever characters he studied in the pea plants, the results were all the same. His observations were all the same. Okay, let's understand how, what, where, why, and all that in the upcoming session. But before that, I have a couple of things to tell you. One is a quick check and one is a homework question. So stay with me and answer these questions. In case of pod color, seed pods, the color green is dominant, recessive, mostly recessive, but sometimes dominant, or none of these. Your time is up. The answer is dominant. Pod color, green is dominant over yellow. Okay, round and wrinkled are contrasting traits of shape of pod, shape of seed, color of seed, flower color. Round and wrinkled, what do you think? Think of the pictures I showed you. Yes, and your time is up. It is shape of seeds. Seeds of pea plants can either be round or wrinkled in appearance. Now coming to the next one. Mendel chose the pea plant because, think about it. It has unisexual flowers, it has a short lifespan, it produces a few offsprings in a single round of cross. All of these. Yes, think carefully, children. I always tell in my regular classes also, just because there is an option which says all of these or none of these, or both A and B, or both B and C, or something like that, it doesn't mean that has to be the answer. Okay? Sometimes it is, no doubt. But you guys have a tendency to pick that as the answer when that is given as the option. Okay, so your time is up. The answer is it has a short lifespan. This is the only true reason among these. Do pea plants have unisexual flowers? No, they have bisexual flowers. Remember, I told you they can be easily cross-pollinated, although they are normally self-pollinating. Then it has a short lifespan, of course. I told you that is a fact. It produces a few offsprings in a single round of cross. No, I asked you to compare it with the human cross, right? Wherein in humans, it's going to be a few offsprings in a single cross, or one offspring in a single cross. Whereas in pea plant, it is many offspring or offsprings in a single round of cross. So definitely, because A and C are wrong statements, all of these is also a wrong statement, and option B becomes our right answer. Well done, everyone who has given me the answers correctly. It means that you have formed a good base and are well prepared to go on to the more complex concepts of Mendelian inheritance, or rather more interesting concepts of Mendelian inheritance. But as I told you, do not come to my next session unprepared. In the sense, understand all the terminology I've told you in session 1, all the concepts I've told you in session 2 today, and then, trust me, session 3 and 4 are going to be super easy for you. Okay? Now, this is the conclusion. You now know about an introduction to Mendel. You now have an introduction to Mendel. You know the concept of factor and gene. Yes. Why did Mendel select the pea plant? Character studied by Mendel in the pea plant. Okay, and children, do not forget, remember to visit vdnt.in/ytpro and use the coupon code AMBPRO because a lot of amazing things are there in store for you. Just visit it and then decide for yourself. Now, children, your homework, I have decided to keep it very, very simple and sweet today. What is the scientific name of the garden pea plant? Let's see who's going to give me the right answer today and who's going to give me the first answer today. And thank you very much, children, for joining me. If you have enjoyed the session, remember to hit the like button right now because otherwise I'm not going to know whether or not this was useful to you, right? So do remember to hit the like button now. Please share it with all your, I would say, ICSE and CBSE 10 friends and also NEET aspirants, if any, like class 11 and 12, because this forms a base to all of you guys. Okay, and please do subscribe to the channel Vedantu 9th and 10th in case you've not done that yet, because every single day we keep coming up with a lot of interesting concepts for you, a lot of interesting videos for you, not just academically, motivationally also. We try our level best to give you all that you need in one single package. And in case you would like to reach out to me personally, here is my email ID. Please drop your feedback in the comment section as well below. Okay, children, so until we meet again, stay safe, take care of your health, take care of people around you, and bye-bye.